Tonight on Talking Points, Syracuse University graduate students protested the university's healthcare policy. We spoke with one of those graduate students.
There's more developments in Syrian foreign policy as President Trump tweeted today to expect more missiles. The tweet comes after reports of a chemical weapons attack committed by Syria. We'll have more on that later.
Mark Zuckerberg testified before Congress on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. We'll break down the testimony from the senators to Zuckerberg's responses. This is Talking Points. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan is leaving his post at the end of his term without seeking re-election. Good evening, I'm Mike Riccardi.
And I'm Josh Carney. Ryan says he will not run for an elected office again, but will remain involved in Republican Party matters.
Ryan made his big announcement yesterday at a press conference on Capitol Hill. The Wisconsin Republican focused on last year's tax legislation as a key moment in his tenure, which began in late 2015. The decision to step down was a shock to even top members of the GOP, who are preparing to defend their majority in both houses of Congress in this year's midterm elections. Ryan's departure could be a huge blow to the GOP, who viewed Ryan as a steady counterpoint to President Trump.
Ryan's departure will clear the way for two GOP frontrunners who have been eyeing the seat for a long time. One is Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy of California and Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana. Those two are very important because they hold a tremendous amount of clout within their party, and McCarthy has wanted this for a long time and was in contention when Ryan was running for it last time. There will definitely be a continuation of sustained power, but an ability to work with the Trump administration, I think, is what the GOP is hoping either one of these can kind of contribute.
Well, obviously, like we said, the GOP views Paul Ryan as a counterpoint to President Trump. I think some would question that characterization of Paul Ryan as to whether or not he is really a counterpoint to President Trump or if he just sided with him along the way. But what I found interesting was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer urging Paul Ryan to speak his mind, to speak, out against President Trump as his term here comes to its end.
Absolutely. Certainly going to be something that we're keeping our eye on. Graduate students took to the quad today to protest a new Syracuse University policy that affects their health care benefits. CitrusTV reporter Zachary Levine has more on that policy change.
A rally for health care, a rally for unionization, a united front of graduate students employed here at SU.
Is intimately connected to the teacher.
This is Brandon Daniels, graduate student and teaching assistant. His message is simple. Grad student teachers at SU deserve affordable, quality health care.
The university made some unilateral decisions to move us off of the employee health insurance plan, which guarantees us good health insurance with a copay structure that allows us to have affordable health care. And they're moving us on to the student plan, which is designed for a younger population that doesn't use health insurance.
Daniels has one simple reason for why good health insurance is so necessary for grad student employees.
When we have to worry about medical bills, finding health insurance services, and finding mental health support, we're not able to attend to the needs of our students, and it's a disgrace that the university is caring so little about our rights as employees.
The other main objective of the protest was to push for the unionization of grad student employees at the university.
There's what's called a legal contract that collective bargaining establishes. In that contract, we could make demands on the university. For example, we could say we demand a 5% raise across the board to all graduate students. We could demand a co-pay health insurance system that is heavily subsidized by the university.
While the change may not come today, students at the rally hope this is a step in the right direction. Zachary Levine, CitrusTV News.
Although it was a small group, as you saw there, the protesters made their voices heard to the larger campus community. We are unaware of any planned follow-up demonstrations.
On Monday, the FBI raided the office and hotel room of President Trump's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. Agents seized business records, emails, and documents relating to several topics. Among those topics include payments to Stormy Daniels and Cohen's efforts to suppress other negative information about Trump. Here to break down the raid and discuss its significance are Talking Points analysts Dan Prager and Brandon Ross. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Now, Dan, I'll start with you. How does the nature of this latest probe how does that relate to the depth of this Bob Mueller probe?
Well, I think it shows that they have something deep. I mean, the amount of requirements they needed to get through to this, to make this raid happen. This is a personal lawyer of the President of the United States. You needed the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. You needed another judge in Manhattan who was a Trump appointee, both to sign off on these things. So it shows that you needed a lot of evidence to get those two guys to sign off on something like that. It shows they have something that they're actually looking for that Michael Cohen has. It shows that they have something on Cohen, and it might create a strain between Cohen and the president.
And what's the significance of Trump's reaction when it comes to this?
Well, Trump was very furious at this action, said he had been considering firing Bob Mueller, and even at points he had said there are reports he was considering firing Rod Rosenstein. And so he is acting really erratically in terms of response. He may very well want a clean house.
Well, Brandon, like you said, he is considering firing Rod Rosenstein, or that's at least what the reports say. If he does so, is that really going to hamper Bob Mueller's investigation?
Absolutely. It would be it would bring about a bunch of new questions, actually, to Mueller's investigation. First of all, I think the first step to firing Mueller would probably be getting rid of the Deputy Attorney General, which might involve getting rid of Sessions as well, the actual Attorney General. But that remains to be seen. The Deputy Attorney General would be the one who could potentially fire Robert Mueller. But let's say that none of that happens. Mueller finishes his investigation. If Mueller decides not to indict the president, and just for reference, Nixon was not indicted and Clinton was not indicted. A lot of legal scholars say that you cannot indict a sitting president. Let's say that that doesn't happen. Mueller does not indict the president. The person who is allowed to say this information can be released to the public is the person overseeing it, the Deputy Attorney General in this case. If Donald Trump replaces Rod Rosenstein with somebody else who is a Trump sycophant and who says, I won't release this, the results of this investigation may never be known.
Well, let's flip that hypothetical, Dan, right? You said if Bob Mueller is able to finish out this investigation. Let's flip it around. Let's say Bob Mueller is fired, and he's not. Isn't the fact that this referral came from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York, is that a sign that the investigation, at least this part of it, the Michael Cohen part, is going to extend just beyond the Mueller probe?
I think absolutely. I think it's worth noting that that shows a good degree of independence with how significant this information is. Bob Mueller had no direct link to this raid. It was signed off on the attorneys in New York, and Mueller likely gave that information, but it was not directly caused by him.
All right, Brandon Ross and Dan Prager, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The Syrian conflict is heating up following last week's chemical attack. Stay with us to find out about the U.S.'s response.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown, and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay. Yeah. Hey Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Leaders exchanged heated rhetoric this week as tensions rose among factions in the Syrian conflict. Today, President Trump tweeted that the U.S. could respond with missiles very soon or not soon at all, after the latest report of a chemical weapons attack carried out by Syrian forces. Several other nations took to the United States' side in opposition to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his Russian allies. Here to tell us what President Trump's reaction means and what the president could do in the region are Talking Points analysts Jack Watson and Anthony Dabbundo. Guys, thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
So what does Trump's reaction to all of this mean?
Well, we've seen a reaction like this from the president regarding foreign policy before. With North Korea, he took to Twitter, called Kim Jong-un "Little Rocket Man." He's doing a similar thing with President Bashar al-Assad, calling him Animal Assad, creating those those Twitter nicknames. But the key element here, people have been saying that the North Korean strategy that the president is employing is working because he's supposed to have a summit with them in May. The key here with the Syrian conflict is not only that there's several factions involved, but the fact that Russia is involved. They're a country with incredible growing global influence, and the fact that that whatever we do, whatever the United States does, in Russia could have consequences, or in Syria could have consequences with Russia.
And Anthony, in terms of this specific situation, what are the options for the United States?
Well, to me, the United States has three options. They've kind of been playing this tit-for-tat game. We saw last year when the Syrians released chemical weapons that they had the airstrike on the facility that they used to manufacture the weapons. But what we've seen is that worked in the short term, but in the long term, Assad said, I don't really care if you bomb 1 or 2 airfields, I'm still going to release these weapons. So that creates a problem for the president. Do you escalate the attacks even further and potentially even go into an intervention to prevent this from happening? Or do you take kind of what the Obama approach was and arm the rebels and try to fight a proxy war?
And things are a little different, if I could just add to that. Things are a little different this year at this particular moment in time because one of the big factions in Syria was at least ISIS. And the fact that their influence not only in Iraq but also in Syria has been completely diminishing, and the U.S. and Russia are both against ISIS, that leaves a faction completely out of it.
And when you look at the U.S., involved with all these different factions, how could each faction react to what the U.S. will ultimately do?
Well, that's going to be the key, Josh, because this is some people were saying that North Korea was the key foreign policy decision of the Trump administration. In my opinion, this has such great broad foreign policy implications for the administration, and especially with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson departing, the fact that we have so many shuffling different positions in the White House right now, in the White House cabinet, it's going to be incredibly interesting to see how everybody reacts to whatever that might be from the Trump administration.
And Anthony, just quickly here, in terms of the conflict moving forward, do we see it escalating anymore?
I think that the Trump administration is actually being quite smart. Trump went on Twitter and made his comments, but Secretary of Defense Mattis has been very careful. They're saying we're going to wait and see. We're going to confirm that this was a chemical attack. They have reason to believe that it's a chemical attack, but they don't know yet. I think we're going to see retaliatory airstrikes. They talked about there are submarines waiting. There are 2 destroyers waiting off the coast of Syria that they could potentially use to attack Syria with. But I don't think we're going to see the full-scale intervention that some people have touted as a potential.
Certainly something that we're going to be keeping our eye on. Certainly something the global community is also going to be watching. Thank you both.
President Trump is looking to secure the border between the U.S. and Mexico. Last week, the White House asked for National Guard troops to be stationed along the southwest border. In a memo, the president said, quote, "The security of the United States is imperiled by a drastic surge of illegal activity on the southern border." Here to discuss the state of that border and President Trump's decisions are Talking Points analysts Gilat, Melamed, and Payton May. Gilat and Payton, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So in terms of this issue, right, it's been a big issue for President Trump since the campaign. Why is he doing this now? It's been over a year into his presidency.
Right, and I think we saw with that Twitter tirade this growing frustration with immigration policy. He talked about DACA being done. He talked about the caravan of people from Honduras, the migrants seeking asylum. He spoke about potentially pulling out of NAFTA due to Mexican immigration policy, and all this was in the days leading up to when that happened. So it's this growing frustration. I think it's finally boiling over.
And there's been, a buildup of troops when we talk about the security of the border and the stationing of troops there. How secure or not secure is the border, and is there a real need for the stationing of troops, Payton?
Well, I think right now there's been statistics with U.S. Border Control that it's actually been a low number of people crossing the border, but they do measure that by how many people are caught. So I don't know how accurate that is with whether or not people are caught or whether or not they're not being caught. But I think right now, whether or not it's necessary, all has to depend on what they're going to end up doing there, like aviation, helping with vehicles, engineering, communication, surveillance, and that sort of thing.
Right, and going off that low number, it was low. The Department of Homeland Security said that in September, but last month in March, there was a big uptick, so that might have played into this decision. So while it has been low, there was a recent uptick.
And what about the states along the southern border, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, New Mexico? What has the response been from them individually?
Well, so they've all committed to sending troops. Trump wants around 2,000 to 4,000 troops. They're not sending that many so far. In the next week, most of the states, Texas, Arizona, are sending about 225, which is not exactly what he wants right now, but maybe that will increase later on.
Right, and what's important to note now is once those troops get there, they can't actually, arrest anyone or detain anyone. They're really there sort of as a helping hand to the ICE agents. They're the ones who, really have the law enforcement behind them. The guards are really just there to help out. But the governors have been cooperative from all 4 states.
And speaking of pulling resources from different areas, everybody wants to figure out where the money is coming from and how it's going to be allotted. So where is the money coming from and what's it being taken away from?
Right. Well, Bush and Obama both put troops at the border for 2 years when they were president. So going off of how much the average cost for them, it'll probably cost $500 million to $800 million if he wants 4,000 troops there for 2 years. There was some money in the budget, $1.6 billion for border security, but that's not just for the troops. That's for everything, technology, surveillance. So it does come partially from that $1.6 billion, but again, $800 million without inflation is a lofty number for troops if you're only drawing from $1.6 billion.
And going off that too, Defense Secretary Mattis has put all that money into the Pentagon budget, and it's going to be funded till September, so maybe that's when we'll find out more about the progress of the border wall and what that status is going to be.
All right, Payton, May, Gilat, Melamed, thanks so much for joining us. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg's testimony ended on Capitol Hill yesterday. Stay with us to find out more about Zuckerberg's 4-hour hearing in front of Congress.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where do cats go on vacation? New York.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified in front of Congress on Tuesday and Wednesday on the leakage of data of over 87 million users of Facebook to a political campaign firm. Senators questioned Zuckerberg on potential improvements to the firm's cybersecurity. Here with more details from Capitol Hill is Talking Points analyst Michael Furnari. Mike, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So in terms of this data, the whole discussion is on data. And which type of data are the Congress concerned with and why?
Well, you say which data, and the data in question here is really almost everything. So your Google searches, even your phone calls, the YouTube videos you like, basically everything that you put out there on the internet, whether you have a Facebook profile or not in some cases, is being used by Facebook. And of course, because Facebook is a free service, they end up making money through advertisements. So of course, advertisers are very keen on getting that data of Facebook's users. So Facebook has really made a living by sharing all of the data possible and making it easier and easier for advertisers to target their users.
Right, in terms of looking at that data when it comes to the totality of a user's relationship with the platform or not, you look at how the data is being used, and I think that is the major concern with the leakage. So how is the data being used by Facebook, and also how are people exploiting Facebook's data?
So Facebook's data is, of course, sent to the advertisers, but then the thing that's really prompted all of this is how this fits into politics and how this fits into political ad targeting. Now, the thing that really brought this to head was the Cambridge Analytica story.
Right.
Now, it's not a new development. That's the other thing, that campaigns have been doing this really since Facebook's inception. This is not really a new phenomenon, but there has definitely been concern over how micro-targeting the ads are and how absolutely specific they are to the different users of Facebook.
I think it's, the security factor and the fact that people feel as though their information is safeguarded and not being taken advantage of by a particular political party. But when you look at this, the main concern why they're on Capitol Hill and why Zuckerberg is in front of Congress is the fact that, there's concerns in terms of potentially regulating the platform, potentially finding some sort of restrictions for the platform. So when you look at kind of Facebook's responsibility to its users and to its data, it's a private social network and it's in a very public setting. So kind of how is that relationship changing and what is Facebook's responsibility?
Well, the responsibility I think is pretty tricky. Now, of course, the problem is that Facebook is something that you don't have to use, and it's also something that you don't directly pay for.
Right.
So the problem that Facebook faces is that if you're going to try to make a better pitch for your advertisers, if you're going to try to make sure your advertisers have the best possible targeting for the client for their users, then you're going to end up taking as much data as you can, and it's difficult to really find a line and the point at which you say no to that.
Right. It's certainly an issue that it has a continuum, and the fact that it'll definitely influence social media networks moving forward. Mike, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Last week, Senate Democrats in New York reached a deal to reunite two factions of the party that have been at odds for more than 7 years. The move sets up the opportunity for the Democrats to claim a majority if the votes fall in their way on April 24th special election. Mike Riccardi has more.
Thanks, Josh. Like you said, Democrats in the New York State Senate have been at war since Andrew Cuomo's first week in office, more than 7 years ago. At that time, in early January of 2011, 4 senators branched away from the Senate Democrats to form the Independent Democratic Conference following disagreements over leadership. However, this story really begins even a few years earlier. In 2008, Democrats won their first Senate majority since 1964, but the one-seat majority did not last long as Democrats fought over leadership and Republicans regained control in 2010. Senator Jeffrey Klein, who became Deputy Majority Leader in 2008, was replaced as the chief strategist for Democrats following the 2010 losses and resigned his post as Deputy Minority Leader in January 2011. Klein then led the way in starting the IDC with 3 of his Democratic colleagues. One of those founding members is Dave Valesky, senator from the 53rd District, which includes parts of Syracuse. The IDC has grown in strength over the last 7 years, now totaling 8 members. During that period, the IDC has spent most of their time caucusing with Republicans. Despite this move, these independent Democratic senators still appear under the Democratic Party line on ballots. Now fast forward to last week, when Andrea Stewart Cousins, the leader of the main Democratic Conference, and Jeffrey Klein came to terms to reunite the party and dissolve the IDC. This deal was originally supposed to take place had Democrats won the 2 special elections on April 24th, but Governor Cuomo urged both leaders to reunite sooner. Since both special election seats have been vacated by Democrats, just one Republican win would prevent the majority. Another wrench in the plans could be Simcha Felder, the Democratic senator from Brooklyn, who has continued to caucus with Republicans after holding up the budget process on how the state handles funding of yeshivas. However, last June, Felder wrote a letter to Klein urging the IDC to rejoin the Democratic Conference. Nevertheless, the deal to reunite bodes well for Governor Cuomo, who is facing a primary challenge from Cynthia Nixon. Nixon was critical of Cuomo, saying he can't have it both ways after previously stating he was powerless to broker a deal between the Democrats, but now looks to claim credit. Despite this monumental deal, many are still wary of its validity after the IDC backed out of a previous reunification deal 4 years ago. And after the break, we'll be right back with some stories you may have missed. Stay tuned.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning?
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. A asking everyone, stay indoors! Come on, that's it, let's go!
Some stories don't receive the mainstream media attention that they deserve. This week on Missed Stories, we discuss another House Speaker's activist post-Congress and government responses to social media outside of the U.S. Former Speaker of the House John Boehner joined the advisory board for marijuana company Acreage Holdings. This company distributes cannabis to 11 states in the U.S. Boehner, who was once very publicly opposed to the legalization of marijuana, explains the importance of veterans having legal access to the drug as a treatment option as the opioid epidemic continues. The director of the Washington, D.C.-based marijuana advocacy group believes that Boehner would have been more influential had he supported veterans' usage of cannabis when he was the Speaker of the House.
In 2011, Boehner publicly stated that he was against the legalization of marijuana as well as any other Schedule I drug, with concerns that its legalization would catalyze the abuse of alcohol and other drugs. Boehner, as well as the rest of the Acreage Advisory Board, plan to dedicate themselves to debunking myths surrounding marijuana and providing that they believe to be overdue relief to veterans.
And social media users in Uganda may soon find themselves the target of a new form of taxation. Earlier this month, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni proposed the idea of taxing users of social media sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. Internet users who access these sites will be charged a daily fee linked to their SIM card. Currently, more than 40% of Ugandans are reported to use the internet. The country's finance minister, Matia Kasaija, says the tax is part of a number of measures aimed at strengthening financing for the national budget.
Many human rights groups and social media users expressed opposition to the plan, saying the tax would stifle freedom of expression in the African nation. In 2016, the Ugandan government restricted access to several social media sites during the country's general election, and many other African rulers have employed similar strategies in efforts to limit opposition to their regimes. If the measure is approved, the tax will go into effect in July of this year.
And President Trump's current choice for the next Secretary of State is current CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Stay with us to learn more about what this pick means moving forward.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
That's all we have for Talking Points tonight. I'm Josh Carney.
And I'm Mike Riccardi. Check out all our clips at CitrusTVnews.com. Have a good night, Syracuse.